Welcome back to Hopeful Horizon, where we bring you stories that inspire, challenge, and leave a lasting impact. Today's story is about respect, redemption, and the power of standing up for what's right. When a luxury car dealership dismisses an elderly woman based on her appearance, they have no idea they just made a huge mistake, because her son is none other than Snoop Dogg. What follows is a jaw-dropping lesson in humility, a viral moment that shakes the internet, and a game-changing decision that no one saw coming. Stay with us as we dive into this unforgettable story of justice served with style. If you love stories that pack a punch with powerful twists, be sure to comment below and let us know where you're listening from. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss an inspiring story from Hopeful Horizon. The polished glass doors of Platinum Motors slid open with a soft whoosh, ushering in the warm afternoon air. Gloria Broaddus stepped inside, her pearl necklace catching the showroom lights. She moved with the slow, measured pace of someone who had lived long enough to know there was no need to rush. Dressed in a floral blouse, a neatly pressed cardigan, and comfortable beige loafers, she looked out of place amid the sleek steel and leather of the luxury cars surrounding her. A row of high-end vehicles gleamed under the recessed lighting. Lamborghinis, Bentleys, and a stunning black Rolls-Royce that seemed to call to her. Gloria made her way toward it, her fingers tracing the edge of the hood with admiration. The paint was so smooth, it reflected her image back at her, a woman of quiet confidence and subtle elegance. The showroom floor was buzzing with activity, but none of it was directed at her. A cluster of salesmen in tailored suits huddled near a wealthy-looking couple, laughing at some private joke. Others catered to clients in designer watches and bespoke shoes, fawning over their potential commissions. Not a single one of them acknowledged Gloria. She sighed. It wasn't the first time she had been overlooked. "Can I help you?" came a voice from behind. Gloria turned to find a tall, young salesman with slicked-back hair and a smirk that barely concealed his condescension. His name tag read Brent. He held a tablet in one hand and an air of exaggerated politeness in the other. Gloria smiled warmly. "Yes, young man. I'd like to test drive this Rolls-Royce." Brent blinked, his smirk deepening into something almost amused. He let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head. "Ma'am, I think you might be looking for something a little more reasonable. Maybe one of our pre-owned models." Gloria tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "No, sweetheart. I'd like to test drive this one." Brent let out a low whistle, looking her up and down in her modest attire. He turned slightly, as if ensuring his coworkers could hear the joke he was about to make. "We don't just let anyone behind the wheel of a $500,000 car." A few of the other employees chuckled. One of them, a junior associate named Lisa, shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Gloria clasped her hands together, her fingers resting against the pearls on her wrist. There was no anger in her eyes, no embarrassment, just patience, the kind that had weathered decades of being underestimated. "I'll just wait for my son," she said, with a serene smile. Brent scoffed, shaking his head. "Right, and your son is going to walk in here and buy this car?" Gloria didn't answer. She simply walked over to one of the waiting chairs near the complimentary espresso bar, easing herself down with grace. She took a sip of water from a small paper cup and folded her hands in her lap, her eyes still glancing toward the Rolls-Royce. Brent rolled his eyes before turning to one of his coworkers. "Her son's probably some middle manager at a bank, thinking he can negotiate a lease on an entry-level Benz," he muttered under his breath. The others snickered, nodding along. Lisa, the junior associate, hesitated before stepping closer to Gloria. "Ma'am, I can show you some—" Gloria waved a hand, cutting her off gently. "Thank you, dear, but I think I'll just wait right here." Lisa bit her lip, hesitating before stepping back. The dealership buzzed with activity as the salesmen continued catering to their high-profile clients, all while sneaking amused glances toward Gloria. The receptionist, a young woman in her 20s, whispered something to her coworker and giggled. The air was thick with quiet condescension, the kind that didn't need to be explicitly stated to be understood. Gloria, however, was unbothered. Minutes ticked by. Then the doors of the dealership swung open again. A hush fell over the room as a tall figure entered, flanked by two casually dressed men. He moved with the kind of effortless confidence that turned heads. A pair of dark designer sunglasses hid his eyes, but there was no mistaking who he was. Snoop Dogg. The room, which had been filled with murmurs and laughter just moments ago, fell into stunned silence. Salesman, who had been entertaining clients moments ago, suddenly stood frozen. Brent's smirk disappeared, his face turning as pale as the white marble tiles beneath his feet. Snoop Dogg scanned the room for a moment before his gaze landed on Gloria. His expression softened instantly, and he strode forward, removing his sunglasses as he approached her. "Ma," he said, his deep voice filled with warmth as he leaned down to kiss her forehead. Gloria smiled up at him. "Hey, baby." Brent looked like he had swallowed his own tongue. He took a half step forward, then back again, unable to decide whether to run or try to fix his mistake. Snoop turned, his expression darkening as he took in the dealership, the hushed whispers, the sudden shift in energy. His gaze landed on Brent. "You the one who told my mama she wasn't good enough to test drive that car?" Brent opened his mouth, then closed it, his throat bobbing. His usual bravado had evaporated. Gloria, still seated, let out a small chuckle. She reached for her water and took a slow sip, watching the scene unfold. The room pulsed with the weight of the moment, and for the first time that afternoon, the employees at Platinum Motors realized they had made a grave mistake. And Gloria, she was just getting comfortable. Gloria Broadus sat patiently in the waiting area of Platinum Motors, her fingers wrapped around a small plastic cup of complimentary water. The air inside the dealership was thick with polished arrogance, the scent of expensive cologne and leather seats mingling with the subtle aroma of brewed coffee. She could still hear Brent and the other employees snickering behind her, their laughter low but deliberate. They weren't even trying to hide it. "She really thinks she's buying a car here," one of them murmured. Brent, the ringleader of their little clique, chuckled. "Her son? What's he gonna do, finance a toy car?" His voice dripped with condescension as he leaned against the desk, his expensive watch glinting under the showroom lights. Lisa, a junior sales associate, fidgeted uncomfortably. Unlike her colleagues, she wasn't laughing. Instead, she watched Gloria from a distance, her conscience warring with her silence. She knew the way they were treating her was wrong, but what could she do? Brent was a favorite among management, and standing up to him could cost her job. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were making a mistake, a big one. Gloria remained composed, sipping her water as she tapped her fingers lightly against the armrest of her chair. Her patience wasn't just for show. She had seen enough of the world to know that arrogance often crumbled under the weight of its own ignorance. She had raised her son to understand that too, and soon enough, they would learn the lesson firsthand. Just as Brent was mid-boast, charming a wealthy client who had just strolled in, the sound of heavy glass doors swinging open echoed through the dealership. The room, once filled with hushed murmurs and laughter, fell into an almost eerie silence. The energy shifted in an instant. A towering figure entered, his presence impossible to ignore. Draped in a sleek designer tracksuit, layered with gold chains that gleamed under the pristine showroom lights, and sporting a pair of dark, oversized shades, he moved with effortless cool. The staff, once smug and dismissive, now stood frozen in place, their expressions a mixture of shock and disbelief. Brent's cocky smirk faltered, his confidence draining like air from a punctured tire. He swallowed hard, his gaze locked on the man walking toward Gloria. "Wait, no way," he muttered under his breath. The man in question was none other than Snoop Dogg. The legendary rapper, businessman, and cultural icon strolled through the dealership with a laid-back ease that only magnified his intimidating presence. His signature braids hung over his shoulders, and his fingers were adorned with rings that probably cost more than Brent's entire yearly salary. He didn't look at anyone else. His focus was solely on the woman in the chair. "They treating you good, Ma?" Snoop asked, his voice smooth and calm as he leaned down to kiss Gloria on the forehead. Gloria, never one to let a moment go to waste, smiled knowingly. She glanced up at her son, her eyes twinkling with quiet amusement. "Not at all, baby." The weight of those words hit Brent like a truck. Snoop straightened, removing his shades and tucking them into his pocket. His normally laid-back demeanor was still present, but there was an unmistakable edge to his stance now. He turned his attention to Brent, his gaze piercing in a way that made the salesman shrink back slightly. "So, you the one who told my mama she ain't good enough for a test drive?" Snoop asked, his tone deceptively casual. Brent opened his mouth, scrambling for words, but nothing coherent came out. The sweat forming at his temples betrayed the fear creeping up his spine. He had built his entire career on reading high-profile clients, knowing when to turn on the charm, when to push a sale, and when to back off. But this was a nightmare scenario he hadn't prepared for. Mr. Dogg, sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding," Brent stammered, trying to salvage the situation. Snoop raised an eyebrow. "Misunderstanding? My mama came in here, real polite, real respectful, and y'all laughed at her, acted like she ain't belong here." Lisa, still standing in the background, felt her stomach twist. She had known this moment was coming the second Gloria mentioned her son. Now, watching Brent squirm under Snoop Dogg's gaze, she felt a mixture of secondhand embarrassment and vindication. The dealership manager, a middle-aged man in a tailored navy blue suit, came rushing out of his office, beads of sweat forming at his hairline. "Mr. Dogg, we would never discriminate against anyone. Platinum Motors values all customers equally. This is just a simple misunderstanding." Snoop let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. "Oh, it's simple, all right. Simple as in, y'all showed your true colors the second you thought my mama wasn't worth your time. Now that you know who she is, you trying to clean it up." The tension in the room was suffocating. Every employee, every customer, every single person inside Platinum Motors was watching the scene unfold, their eyes bouncing between Brent, Snoop, and Gloria. "We'd love to make this right," the manager said quickly. "Maybe we could offer a special deal, or, now we gon' fix this another way," Snoop interrupted smoothly. He reached into his pocket, pulling out his phone, and within seconds, he was live streaming to his millions of followers. "Yo, check this out," he said into the camera, turning to give the dealership's logo a clear shot. "My mama came in here just trying to buy a car. She got money, she got class, but these folks decided she wasn't good enough. They laughed at her, disrespected her." The comment section was already flooding with messages. "Not Grandma Gloria. Platinum Motors about to be canceled. Name and shame them." Snoop panned the camera over to Brent, who looked like he was about to be sick. "Now that they know who she is, they trying to switch up, but it don't work like that. Respect is supposed to be for everybody." Gloria, ever the composed matriarch, took a delicate sip of her water and then met her son's gaze. "Baby, I think I know which car I want." Snoop grinned, turning the camera back to her. "Tell him, Ma." "Which one?" She set her cup down and pointed toward the gleaming Rolls-Royce she had admired earlier. "The black one with the silver trim." Snoop nodded. "Eat then, let's make it happen." The dealership staff stood in stunned silence as he pulled out his phone once again, this time making a direct call to his financial team. "I need a wire transfer, full price, right now." Brent's face drained of color. The dealership was about to sell one of its most expensive vehicles, but not because of anything he had done. In fact, he was about to pay the price for his mistake in the worst way possible. As the transaction was set in motion, Snoop turned back to the manager. "Oh, and don't think we done yet." Because this wasn't just about buying a car, it was about making a statement, and Brent was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The dealership was drowning in silence. The air felt thick, tense, like a storm had rolled in, and no one knew how to prepare for it. Every set of eyes in Platinum Motors was locked on Snoop Dogg as he stood tall, his presence undeniable. His designer jacket gleamed under the showroom lights. His gold chain swayed slightly as he shifted his weight, and his signature shades concealed the full force of the fire in his eyes. Brent, the once cocky salesman, now looked like he'd just swallowed a mouthful of nails. His jaw twitched as he tried to find his words, but they stumbled before they could even leave his lips. "So," Snoop drawled, taking a step closer, his voice calm, but carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. "You the one who told my mama she ain't good enough for a test drive?" Brent's Adam's apple bobbed. I didn't mean..." "Nah, don't start backpedaling now," Snoop cut him off. lifting a hand as if to physically stop the nonsense before it could fully form. "You ain't know who she was, huh? But now you do, and you nervous." He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "That's the problem with folks like you. Y'all treat people like they ain't worth nothing unless they show up flashy. Like if they ain't drippin' in designer, they must be broke. But see, my mama?" He turned, gesturing towards Gloria, who sat comfortably, her fingers laced together, her expression unreadable but sharp. "She ain't gotta prove nothing to nobody." Brent's face had lost its color, but he wasn't alone in his discomfort. The other salesmen, the same ones who had snickered along with him, were shifting awkwardly, avoiding Snoop's piercing gaze. Even the manager had appeared from his glass office, looking like a man who'd just been informed his house was on fire. Lisa, the junior employee who had stood silently through it all, finally took a deep breath. This was her moment. "Mr. Dogg," she started, stepping forward, "your mother came in here with nothing but respect. She asked for a test drive, and Brent laughed at her. He didn't even give her a chance. And..." She hesitated, then pressed on, her voice firmer. "The others laughed too. No one stepped in. And I should have." Snoop nodded slowly, acknowledging her honesty. "Takes a lot to admit that." The manager took this as his cue to step in, his hands clasped together as if he were about to start praying. "Mr. Dogg, we would never discriminate, I assure you. This is all a misunderstanding, that's all." "Misunderstanding?" Snoop echoed, cocking his head slightly. "Nah, see, a misunderstanding is when you step on somebody's shoe by accident. This question mark. This was straight-up disrespect." The manager swallowed hard. "I assure you, sir, Platinum Motors takes customer service very seriously. If we had known..." "If you had known," Snoop repeated, letting the words stretch, letting the weight of them settle. "That's exactly the problem. You only treat folks right when you think they somebody, but everybody's somebody." His voice was like steel wrapped in silk, smooth but sharp enough to cut deep. "Aight then, let's fix it." The whole dealership watched as he pulled out his phone, his fingers moving swiftly before he lifted it, the camera now trained on the room. With a single tap, he was live on Instagram. "Yo, what up, world?" Snoop's voice took on that familiar, laid-back yet commanding tone, his signature charm woven into his every word. "Y'all see this? My mama came in here just trying to buy a car, but these folks decided she wasn't good enough. Decided she ain't looked the part. Laughed at her, disrespected her. But guess what? Now they know who she is. Now they nervous." The comments section exploded instantly. Thousands of people flooded in within seconds. "Damn, Snoop exposing them. How they gonna do Ms. Broaddus like that?" Another case of judging a book by its cover, SMH. The employees fidgeted, their faces growing redder by the second, as Snoop panned the camera around the dealership. Lisa stood frozen, not sure whether she should move or stay put. "Y'all tell me," Snoop continued, addressing his millions of followers, "how many times this kind of thing happened to people who ain't got cameras to catch it? Who ain't got a son with a platform? This ain't just about my mama. This about all the folks y'all brush off because they don't look like money." Brent looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. The manager was visibly sweating now, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. "So here's what we gon' do," Snoop said, shifting his attention back to Gloria. "Ma, pick whichever car you want." Gloria, calm and collected as ever, finally stood. She walked with deliberate steps toward the Rolls-Royce she had admired earlier. Running her fingers over the hood once more, she looked back at her son with a twinkle in her eye. "I'll take the Rolls." Snoop grinned. "Rolls it is!" The manager nearly choked. "Of course, Mr. Dogg. Right away. We'll get the paperwork ready." "Yeah, you do that," Snoop said, sliding his phone back into his pocket. "And while you at it, you might want to talk to your team about how they treat people, 'cause next time, you might not get a chance to fix it." The weight of his words lingered, heavy and inescapable. The power dynamics in the room had shifted entirely. Gloria, the woman they had dismissed without a second thought, was now driving home in the most expensive car on the lot, and the dealership. They were left reeling, knowing they had made a mistake they'd never lived down. As Snoop put an arm around his mother, guiding her toward the paperwork, Brent looked on, knowing his days at Platinum Motors were numbered. And Lisa? She had no idea what was coming next, but something told her that things were about to change in ways she never expected. The moment Snoop Dogg lifts his phone and taps the live button, the entire energy inside Platinum Motors shifts. His face fills the screen as millions of followers get a front row seat to the unfolding drama. "Yo, check this out," Snoop says, his voice smooth yet firm. "My mama came in here just trying to buy a car, but these folks decided she wasn't good enough. They disrespected a queen. Now, y'all tell me, how should we handle this?" Within seconds, the comments section explodes. Messages flood in from fans, activists, and everyday people sharing their outrage. Not them messing with Auntie Gloria. Expose them, Unc. We don't play about our elders. Let's see them backpedal now. Brent, the arrogant salesman, visibly pales. His confidence, once bolstered by mockery and ignorance, now crumbles under the weight of a live audience, numbering in the millions. His lips twitch as he tries to form a sentence, but his throat is dry, his body frozen. The dealership manager, Mr. Langston, rushes out from his office, his face slick with sweat. His expensive suit suddenly feels suffocating as he tries to assess the situation. His years of experience in handling high-profile clients are failing him under the glare of Snoop's live stream. "Mr. Dogg, please, let's not escalate the situation. This was all a big misunderstanding." His forced chuckle is met with an unimpressed stare from Snoop. "Misunderstanding?" Snoop repeats, raising an eyebrow. "Nah, a misunderstanding is when you call someone the wrong name. What y'all did to my mama, that was straight-up disrespect." Lisa, the junior employee, shifts uncomfortably beside Brent. She had already spoken up earlier, but the guilt of staying silent too long weighs on her. Taking a deep breath, she steps forward. "Mr. Dogg, I just want to say that what happened was wrong. I saw it, and I regret not stepping in sooner." Gloria gives Lisa a knowing look, her expression softening just a bit. "It takes courage to admit that, sweetheart," she says, nodding. "But don't just be sorry. Be better." The live comments go wild. "Auntie Gloria dropping wisdom." "Lisa, don't get fired now." Snoop smirks at his mother's words before turning back to the dealership. "Aight then, let's fix it." The entire room is watching, waiting. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. Then Snoop turns to Gloria, his voice carrying a mix of warmth and authority. "Ma, pick whichever car you want." Gloria's face lights up. Despite everything that had happened, she wouldn't let bitterness steal this moment. Her eyes drift back to the sleek black Rolls-Royce she had admired earlier. She lifts a hand and runs her fingers over the pristine hood, feeling the smoothness beneath her fingertips. A slow smile spreads across her face. "I'll take the Rolls." A gasp ripples through the dealership. Brent's jaw slackens as his mind races to process what's happening. The very woman he dismissed as not their clientele is now claiming the most expensive car on the lot. Snoop doesn't hesitate. He pulls out his phone, taps a few times, and within seconds, a bank transfer is completed. The payment confirmation dings through the air like a hammer, sealing Brent's fate. "There it is," Snoop says, holding up his phone for the live viewers to see. "Paid in full. No financing. No layaway. Straight cash." Brent sways on his feet, his usual bravado reduced to stunned silence. The dealership staff look at each other, some ashamed, others trying to hide their shock. Mr. Langston's forced smile twitches at the edges, his mind scrambling for damage control. The live chat erupts. "Bought the whole whip like it was a pack of gum. Unc, you a real one for this. This how you do it. Make 'em feel it." Snoop gestures to Gloria. "Go ahead, Ma. Take your ride for a spin." A young valet practically sprints to bring the keys, his hands trembling as he presents them to Gloria. She takes them with a regal nod and steps into the driver's seat. The interior is pure luxury, hand-stitched leather, a starry ceiling, the scent of new beginnings. She grips the steering wheel, feeling the power beneath her fingertips. As the engine purrs to life, she looks back at Brent, who still hasn't recovered from the public humiliation. She gives him one final knowing smile. Next time, young man, don't judge a book by its cover. With that, she rolls off the lot in her brand new Rolls-Royce, leaving Brent, the dealership, and an unforgettable lesson in her wake. The internet, however, will not forget so easily. The dealership buzzed with a nervous energy. Employees whispered among themselves, stealing anxious glances at Snoop Dogg, who stood tall beside his mother. The weight of the viral moment still lingered in the air, thick with tension. The comments section of Snoop's livestream continued to explode, with thousands of fans flooding in, calling out Platinum Motors for their blatant disrespect. Brent, now visibly pale, shifted on his feet, desperately searching for a way to salvage his dignity. The once cocky salesman was now a crumbling shell of his former arrogance. The dealership manager, a stocky man with a receding hairline, wiped the sweat off his brow as he stepped forward, forcing a nervous chuckle. "Mr. Dogg, listen, this was just a misunderstanding," he stammered. "We at Platinum Motors pride ourselves on treating every customer with the utmost respect. Brent here, well, he made an unfortunate mistake." Snoop tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable behind his signature shades. "A mistake?" he echoed. His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge beneath the smoothness. "Nah. See, a mistake is when you spill coffee on your shirt. A mistake is when you forget your keys in the car." He turned to Brent, his gaze cold. "What you did? That wasn't a mistake. That was you thinking you could judge my mama based on how she looked. That was you thinking she wasn't worth your time." Brent opened his mouth, perhaps to offer another flimsy excuse, but the dealership manager cut him off. "You're fired." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Brent blinked, as if his brain was refusing to process what had just happened. "What?" he croaked. "You heard me," the manager said, his voice firmer now. "Clean out your desk." A few employees gasped quietly. Others nodded in silent agreement. Lisa, the junior employee who had spoken up earlier, bit her lip, unsure of what to do. Brent let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, so now you want to act like you care?" he sneered at the manager. "Now that Snoop Dogg's putting you on blast, y'all didn't have a problem when I was selling more cars than anyone else." "That's enough, Brent," the manager said through clenched teeth. Brent looked around the showroom, his gaze darting from one employee to the next. No one came to his defense. The smug confidence he had wielded like a weapon was gone. With one last glare at Snoop and Gloria, he turned on his heel and stormed out, pushing past the glass doors with a force that made them rattle. Snoop let out a low chuckle. "Ain't so funny now, huh?" he murmured, shaking his head. The dealership manager turned back to Snoop, still eager to do damage control. "Mr. Dogg, please believe me when I say this isn't how we operate. Brent was an outlier." Snoop raised a hand, cutting him off. "Nah, I don't want to hear all that." The manager shut his mouth instantly. Snoop turned his attention to Lisa, who was standing to the side, her hands clasped together. She looked unsure, almost as if she didn't want to get caught in the crossfire. "Lisa, right?" Snoop asked. Her eyes widened. Yeah. You the only one who spoke up for my mama?" Lisa glanced at Gloria, who was watching her with a kind, approving smile. It didn't sit right with me what they were doing," she admitted. "But I should have spoken up sooner." Snoop nodded. "Most people wouldn't have said nothing at all." He turned to the manager. "How long's she been working here?" The manager cleared his throat. "Lisa's been with us for about a year. She's one of our newer employees, but she's been doing well." Snoop smirked. "Good. Then she deserves a promotion." Lisa's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" The manager hesitated. Well, he glanced around, realizing he was still very much under the scrutiny of Snoop's live audience. "Absolutely. Lisa, congratulations. You're our new senior sales consultant." Lisa blinked in shock. Thank you. Oh my God." Gloria reached out, giving Lisa's hand a warm squeeze. "You earned it, baby." The other employees clapped, some genuinely happy for Lisa, others simply wanting to stay on Snoop's good side. Snoop ended the live stream, satisfied. He turned to his mother. "You ready to ride, Ma?" Gloria smiled, glancing at her brand new Rolls-Royce, now prepped and ready outside the dealership. "I was born ready, baby." With that, Snoop escorted his mother out. the dealership staff watching in stunned silence as she slid into the plush leather seat of her dream car. The engine purred to life, and with one final glance at the dealership she had walked into as just an old lady, Gloria smirked. People had underestimated her, and now they'd never make that mistake again. Gloria's fingers glided over the smooth leather steering wheel as she eased the Rolls-Royce out of the dealership lot. The engine purred like a satisfied cat, and she couldn't help but smile. Snoop stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching his mother with pure pride. The dealership employees were still frozen in disbelief, some whispering to each other, others glued to their phones, watching the viral moment unfold in real time. Brent was gone. Lisa had been promoted. The damage to Platinum Motors' reputation had already been done, but Snoop wasn't finished yet. Just as the manager let out a relieved breath, thinking the storm had passed, Snoop turned back to the stunned crowd. "Oh yeah, one more thing." The tone in his voice made the dealership manager's stomach drop. "I just bought this dealership." A collective gasp rippled through the showroom, the manager's face drained of color. What? Snoop pulled out his phone and flashed an email confirmation. "That's right. Had my team lock it down a couple hours ago." He smirked. "See, I ain't just walk in here to buy a car. I came to make a statement." The employees exchanged nervous glances. Lisa's eyes widened in shock. "Wait, so you own Platinum Motors now?" Snoop adjusted his sunglasses. "Not Platinum Motors. That name don't sit right with me no more." He turned to the manager. "Matter of fact, you ain't got to worry about running this place no more." The manager let out a wheezy chuckle, still trying to process what was happening. "Now, hold on, Mr. Dogg." "Nah," Snoop said, shaking his head. "Holding on is what got you here. You let your people treat customers like trash, so now you out." The dealership manager looked like he was about to faint. His lips parted as if to argue, but he must have realized there was no winning this fight. He hung his head, his career crumbling right before his eyes. Snoop turned to Lisa. "You ever thought about being a manager?" Lisa's jaw nearly hit the floor. What? Me?" Snoop grinned. "Yeah, you. Somebody who actually got respect for people." Lisa swallowed hard, nodding slowly. I'd love that." "Good," Snoop said. "You got the job." The showroom erupted into scattered applause. Some employees, especially the ones who had ignored Gloria, shifted uncomfortably, realizing the power had shifted completely. Others, who had always felt uncomfortable under management like Brent's, let out sighs of relief. Snoop turned back to the crowd. "Ain't about what you think somebody got. It's about how you treat them." His voice carried weight, the kind that made people listen. "This dealership, it ain't gonna be a place where folks get judged based on their clothes or their age or the color of their skin." He pointed at the cameras still recording. "To everybody watching, we flippin' the script. This place, it's about respect now." The internet exploded. Snoop's words spread like wildfire across social media, news stations, and entertainment blogs. Hashtags trended instantly. Respect over riches. Sishmar Snoop changes. The game. Platinum. No more. A movement had begun. As Gloria leaned out the window of her brand new Rolls-Royce, she looked at her son with a smirk, her eyes twinkling. "Always knew you'd do big things, baby." Snoop grinned, adjusting his sunglasses. "And we just getting started, Ma." With that, Gloria revved the engine and drove off into the sunset, a queen in her rightful throne. And Snoop? He had just turned a moment into a movement. The dealership would never be the same again. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of respect, redemption, and change. Snoop Dogg's story reminds us that real power isn't just about wealth. It's about using your influence to uplift others and challenge injustice. His bold move turned a moment of discrimination into a movement for respect, proving that how you treat people truly matters. If this story inspired you, don't forget to leave a comment and share your thoughts. And let us know where you're listening from. We love hearing from our community. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss another powerful story. We'll be back with more tales that challenge, inspire, and leave you thinking long after they're over. Until next time, stay hopeful, stay strong, and always stand up for what's right.